and welcome to our New England. It's Wednesday night. It's March 2nd. It's not March 2nd. It's March 6th. So we're glad that you were able to join us tonight. And let me bring my partner in crime up here and get our show off to a rocking start this week. John, how you doing?
Already.
What's that?
Is it the 6th?
Huh? It's the 6th. Yeah, I just noticed my clock on my. Oh no, that's my emails. Never mind. Don't mind me. I got too many things on the plate today. So
okay. So regardless of what day it is, it's the first Wednesday in March.
If it's Wednesday, it's RVing in New England. Beautiful. All right. So we got a couple of quick housekeeping notes because we got a jam-packed show tonight, and with Mike Sokol. Who's going to talk to us about RV electricity, and Mike's associated with RV travel, but he'll tell us all about that. So a lot of stuff on the agenda this week and going into next week.
This time next week, we'll be having dinner with our RV journalist friends.
That's correct. But
the reason we're all going to be together is we're going to the country's first dealers only. Look at our graphics. Mike, we just have unbelievable. There we go. Unbelievable graphics. Lift it higher.
We spend a lot of money for this stuff.
There we go. It's the RV experience. It is in Salt Lake City. I've only landed there and taken off again. I've never stepped foot from the airport.
Never been there.
And you know what? There's going to be a lot of new stuff. And we should tell our viewers that in addition to our show, which will be coming live from the show floor a week from tonight, where we don't even know who we're going to have a guest because we're going to be on the show floor and it's only 5 o'clock there. So the convention's still going to be going on. We're going to be talking to a lot of the bigwigs in the industry.
So we have to clarify that. You will be talking.
That's right.
The bigwigs. That's right. I will be in meetings. So you'll be solo next week on the show floor.
Right. So basically I'll be doing all the work.
You'll do all the work.
All the work, yeah. Kind of like it is every week. And
that's true. You know,
but nevertheless, we've got a whole additional series of live events coming throughout the day on Tuesday and Wednesday, and as well as Thursday. So, folks, don't think that this is the only thing that you've got to stay up for next week. We're going to be we've got Toby O'Rourke, the president of KOA, talking about the campground of the future. We're going to talk to the president of Winnebago. We're going to talk to some people from NASCAR that are announcers on NBC TV. We've got quite a wild lineup, and there's going to be more that we don't even know about yet because there's all the secrecy about this show, right, Bob?
Right.
The secrecy about the show.
It is a trade show, but it's got a real nice consumer twist to it. A lot of items are going to be pushed out through social media, including on Tuesday afternoon, what they're calling the reveal, and it's going to be 9 brand new RVs that are categorized by the type of personality that might buy them. So it might be an outdoor adventurer, it might be a retired couple, it might be destination camping, and we do have the list, but it's embargoed, so we can't tell you. John and I do know what the 9 RVs are, but we promised it's embargoed, so we can't tell you about it.
Well, however, if somebody does want to come up with, a 6-figure amount, I'm willing to spill the beans on that.
Yeah. Closer to home in this weekend. So watch Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. It's going to be crazy. But this weekend we've got the brand new Southern New England RV and Camping Show at Mohegan Sun, and you'll be able to see Bradford RV, Camping World, Diamond RV Center, Fuller RV Rentals, Longview RV, Mans RV, and Pete's RV.
And Bob Zagami RV.
And I will be doing seminars with Randy Murray on the program. We'll be on Saturday and Sunday. I think Randy's doing some on Friday also. Arlington RV has the first of their 2 weekends for their annual open house, and they are closed on Sunday, so their open house will be next Saturday, the 9th, and then again on the 16th. Lee's Family Trailer Sales up in Windham, Maine. Big open house going from the 9th all the way through the 17th, covering 2 weekends. And Bradford RV just sent me some stuff today. They've got a St. Patrick's Day sale this weekend on the 9th and 10th. So you got plenty of things to do this weekend, and that's in our cover photo on our page. So we've already got over
the only
20
thing with
people.
the Bradford RV, the St. Pat, they're all green.
Yeah.
If you like a Irish green, they're good, but Brad will sell them cheap. So it might be a heck of a deal. And then you can just paint it normal colors when you're done.
Yeah. All right. So we already got well over 20 people sitting here waiting. So we're gonna rock them tonight. So let's bring up Mike Sokol. Mike, welcome to RVing in New England. We are delighted to have you.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, Bob, Mike's not in his normal spot. He's usually on the left. He's on the right side. What's going on? You got me all messed up.
Huh? I don't know. Just the way it showed. Just the way. Maybe it's the way I brought him in late.
I don't know. We're creatures of habit in this business, and normally when I'm looking at this monitor, Bob's on the right, the guest is on the left, so I have to move my chair around.
Okay, you do that.
We'll see how long it takes before people comment on my nice draperies in the back.
Yeah. So Mike, we met you several years ago through our good buddy Chuck Woodbury and RV Travel, and I assume Chuck is probably watching if it's not past his bedtime out in Seattle. But give us a little bit of your background and your association and what you're doing in the RV industry.
Well, my actual electrical background is I started when I was a very small child experimenting with electricity, and went to school for it eventually. Started as a mechanical engineer.
But Mike, stop for a second. You experimented with electricity at a young age, and you're around to tell about it.
I can remember when I was 4.
Taking a toaster apart, right?
Well, actually, I was starting to build circuits. I tried to build a perpetual motion machine when I was maybe 9. It didn't work very well with a motor and a generator. My poor parents. And then I went into mechanical engineering, worked for Corning Glass, went into electrical engineering. I used to build nuclear guidance systems for Angstrom Precision and Vishay. And that started my own computer integration company. So.
But you built them for what? I didn't even understand the words.
What's the name of the company, Bob?
Angstrom Precision. It means little precision for what that's worth.
Yeah. Bob thought it meant anxious and little patience.
No, but I've been a musician forever. My mom said I could play piano before I could talk. So I always got interested in that. So I'm really, for the last 20 or 30 years, I've focused on sound engineering. So I do a lot of power distribution for big rock concerts and big generators and everything. And that's actually, I got interested in stuff for RVs. I RV'd all around the country when I was younger. But now I would travel on a tour bus, but I would have guys getting shocked on a big Prevost tour bus. And I thought that's nothing but an RV, a really expensive RV. So I started looking for information, and I could not find enough important information about, how RVs hooked up and how you got shocked. So I found Chuck, and Chuck said, Chuck Woodbury from RV Travel, he would let me publish anything I wanted to write. So, for a writer, that's a good thing.
So were you a roadie at one time?
Oh, no, I was never a roadie. I was an A1.
Okay, so I didn't know.
Roadies move gear.
Right.
I set microphones and yell at everybody to move gear.
On stage.
On stage. I'm the guy. Right. I've done sound for everybody. I've done sound for Oprah and all the presidents and, AC/DC, you name it, every kind of act out there. I've done sound at one time or another for.
And you can still hear, which is even more amazing.
Yes, and I can still hear. I still write a lot for the pro sound industry. I mean, I write every week. And I write every week for RV Travel, my own RV electricity columns and such.
So did you ever do sound for Kenny Rogers?
No, never did sound, but he would be fun to do. I've done
John's worked with him.
Right, she's fabulous.
Yeah, John's worked with him for 30 years you worked with Kenny, John?
Yeah, 35 years.
35 years.
Yep. He used to bring his own sound people instead of use the people locally, because you can control the content and the quality much greater that way.
They do. They bring in their own guys. A lot of times I would be the house engineer.
Yeah.
Know how everything hooked up. And a lot of times I would run the intro acts, those guys. And sometimes if we're doing festivals, I'll just run the whole thing.
Yeah. Let me, I like to take a quick run through our early visitors because we have a good group of people that will be asking you questions tonight. We got Matt Gillum. He's the service manager up at Cold Springs RV. Thanks for joining, Matt. We got Brian and Lisa from Two Feathers RV Restorations out in Deerfield. Jason Cole, Good Sam director for the state of Rhode Island. Ray Corchain, he's coming in from New Hampshire. We are soon to be first-time RVers, have the rig waiting for the weather. Ray, welcome to the show, and you're going to love this one because there's good information as you're jumping out there for the first time. Jerry Plant's on. Can't wait to see what millennial model would be. Well, you have to wait a couple of days. And Doug Fron from Billerica. Walter Swenson's on, CEO of KOA. LOL. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but Toby is the CEO now. Toby is the CEO and the president of KOA. Diane Quayle, and I suspect either Martin's sitting next to her or he's working at the post office tonight, one or the other. But they're our main Good Sam directors. Scott Nichols from Marshfield. Adam is on from North Haven. Walter, good evening. 12 viewers already in the first minute. We had more than that. We're almost up to 30 now. Jerry from Cape Cod. I was up to Flag RV in West Boylston today doing an inspection. Nice facility. It is. They got 2 nice facilities. They just put that new service building up in West Boylston. So Gary Leach just joined. Thanks for all the articles, Mike from Oregon. So you got a fan club out in Oregon. So Mike,
we go from coast to coast, just like last week. We had Maine and California. Now we've got Maine and Oregon.
Maine to Oregon. And, sometimes we get international. So Mike, in you do a couple of things with RV travel. Of course, you got your electricity newsletter, which is becoming very popular. But you're also doing seminars around the country. Let's start off with this and tell us a little bit about the book. And I assume that a lot of the stuff that now this book is available on Amazon.com, and we will put a link in to our comments later on for you.
Right.
Oh, Ray's impressed that I announced his name the right way. Well, when you got Zagami, Ray, you know, I've been the victim of that on the other side also. Tell us about the book and RV safety.
Well, that really started as an offshoot when Chuck Woodbury and I started talking about teaching electrical. He said, you know, I can give you like 1 or 2 articles, you know, maybe 1,500 words each. And I said, oh, I can't teach anything. I can't hardly write my name in 1,500 words. So I said, they need to be at least 3,000 or 4,000 words each, which is a pretty big article. And I said, I need at least a dozen. And he goes, how can you spread it out over a dozen? I said, oh, no, electrical can take, there's a lot of different aspects of it. So he ran that every week, and I just kept writing more articles. And I looked at that and I said, that's most of a book. So I just started adding more chapters on, published it as an electronic book first. And then people started saying, can't you do that as a print version? And I said, I guess so. So I do some pretty good sales on that right now.
Hey, Mike. I want to, I know we're going to get into some technical stuff here, but I know a lot about electricity, and I fall into the P&P category whenever I go to a campground. And basically that stands for plug and pray. And I presume that I'm probably not the only person in that category. And before we get into specifics, could you just tell us, based upon your history and experience, what are 2 of the biggest, most common mistakes that RVers make when it comes to dealing with the electrical systems in their units?
Well, I would say the first one is they use too small of an extension cord and through a variety of adapters. And I've seen some of the craziest things where they're using a really, really small gauge cord or a very, very long one. And you get a lot of voltage drop, but they can also overheat and catch on fire. So that's a bad thing.
I mean, the cheaper ones.
As the little Home Depot orange jobby that you can get for $10. The other thing that I see, people will assume that getting shocked is a normal thing, and then they won't take care of it. They'll come back and they'll say, you know, I was only getting shocked when the ground was wet. It's dry now, so everything's okay. So.
They can only make that assumption once, though, can they not?
Well, no. A lot of times you get shocked dozens of times, but it's that one time that nails you. And I can,
that nails you.
One time it can be really bad, but no, I've gone into a lot of study on this. I've talked to one of my buddies is a heart surgeon. A couple of my guys, one of my colleagues is a electrical engineer on a nuclear submarine. So I got guys around the world that we discuss all of this with. So I tell people, if you feel a shock, something is horribly wrong and you need to fix it now.
Immediately.
But
Yes.
Jerry mentioned that, and he wanted you to, could Mike comment on how dangerous a hot skin is and how to check for it. So I've got this slide and I've got the two other ones. You want to talk to Jerry's comment?
Sure.
Well, can you also define what hot skin is for those of us that are not savvy with the lingo?
Certainly. So first off, the RV industry is the only one that calls it a hot skin. Every other industry will call it a stray voltage. So if you look up stray voltage, you'll find out everything. So basically, it's not just the skin of the RV, but the chassis, every metal piece, the hitch, the wheels, and everything has a voltage that's elevated above ground, the ground potential that you're on. And so that would imply that if you're standing on the ground and you touch a door handle or the hitch, the side of the RV, anything, that current can go through you. And it takes a very small amount of current, less than the amount that you need for a nightlight, that can stop your heart.
Oh, okay. So we're not fooling around.
No. Yeah, sadly, whenever there's a death, everybody, if you go research, hot skin stuff, everybody comes to me now. So I get sheriff's departments, I get reporters, everybody calling me about why this happened, and it's really sad, especially when little children die from this sort of thing.
Can everybody hear it?
Yes. What? No, I did not hear the question.
No. There's a little bit of feedback. I don't think there was a question.
Oh, it was
my phone was on.
Oh,
very good. Okay, so yeah, that's what the end result is. We can go into a little more depth, but what causes it. But the key here is that the thing that you want to avoid, if you feel a shock, it means something bad is going to happen later, and you want to take care of it.
So what does this picture tell us?
That's one way you can test for. First off, that's my tiny RV. That's my little Westphalia. And I am showing how to meter between ground and it. So anything over about 30 volts AC starts to get to be dangerous. And it can go all the way up to 120 volts AC on the skin of it. So that's how you actually test with a digital voltmeter.
Okay. But
Mike, more complex. That's a gold standard test.
Again, from my limited knowledge of electricity, go back to that picture there. That Volkswagen, that's metal skin.
That's correct.
Most RVs, except for Class C's, most Class A's are not going to have that metal skin, right? They're going to have the fiberglass or something like that.
But here's the thing. This is why I don't like the word hot skin. Because it's basically the door frame, the chassis, the steps, everything. So this is
more
why,
than
that's why hot skin is kind of I have to say it because the RV industry understands that, but I generally say it's a hot skin stray voltage because there have been people electrocuted by stepping on the metal steps.
Wow. Okay.
When you
say it means you die from being shocked.
Die.
Can you read Jerry's comment there?
Yes. I had 24 volts AC on mine once, got shocked when I unlocked the basement doors. 24 volts AC is right down at the lower limits. Now, it'll get your attention. If you have a strong heart, you'll probably be okay. But, many older folks might have not the best hearts or children or dogs, pets. Pets sometimes will tell you that there's a hot skin on your RV because as they step onto the steps, and their little pads of their feet are wet, they will wince and jump.
Get a little yelp out of them.
Get a yelp out of them. Yeah,
they're last yelp. So, Mike, in a circumstance like that, we know what the problem is now. How do we, short of taking out that voltometer there?
Well, the one here that you're showing is actually a test that I developed, and this is what we call a non-contact voltage tester, or an NCVT, and the electricians will call them tick testers. But the thing is, it will, in fact, discover a hot skin. It looks like a little pen that you turn on. Mm-hmm. And when you point it over at your RV, if the RV has more than 30 or 40 volts on it, it will beep at you and vibrate, and the lights will come on. And in fact, if your RV has 120 volts on them, sometimes that thing will beep from 2 feet away. And that usually gets people's attention.
Kind of like radioactive.
But you have to touch something, Mike? You have to touch,
no, you don't have to touch it at all. It's a non-contact tester. It's all plastic. If you get within an inch of it, and it'll go right through paint. It'll work right through rust. It's the coolest test around. So you can get these for like $25 or so.
So it's not connected to that box next to the Volkswagen?
No, it looks like a pen.
Okay, so it's a freestanding pen. Okay, so
it looks like a pen. We list them everywhere, all over the place on Chuck's website. But they were originally used by electricians to see if an outlet was on. But the key, I found that if you have a large surface that's energized, that thing will light up from a foot or 2 feet away. It's pretty fun.
Well,
what are those called?
Non-contact voltage tester.
Now that's interesting, because I used to test with something that I used to plug into the
Doesn't
circuit.
need to plug in at all. This is completely non-contact. As part of my seminars, I show this. I've done some of them where I've energized a 40-foot RV with myself. I mean, I can make anything electrified if I want.
So, Mike,
yes.
Is this something that you're saying that every RVer should have and
I believe
and use? Like if Gary Bundra comes on, he talks about tires. You're talking about electricity. Is it something that should be standard operating procedure before you begin your trip or during your trip, or when should people test for this?
After you plug into your pedestal or your home power, then you really should use this on your RV just to make sure that you have a solid connection. Because if you have a broken extension cord, a break in your dog bone adapter, or an open ground and whatever you plug into, then your RV will go to 60, 80, 120 volts. So this is the protocol: is after you plug in, you just turn this little tester on, touch your RV with it anywhere, point at the steps, anything metal, and if it beeps, something is horribly wrong right there.
Okay,
Wow.
so here's how good our viewers are, because they do research while we're talking on the show. They run out and check things. But so Walter tells, and Walter's the new state director for Massachusetts, Good Sam, and he's got a rally coming up Memorial Day. Now, so there's one that talks about
the Klein NCVT2. I have all of them. I must have a dozen different brands of these things. That one's a very nice one. The Fluke, let's see, Fluke NCV tester that never really worked. Wow, that's hard to believe. Bought the Klein Tools version. Klein works good. Southwire makes one. There's probably at least a dozen manufacturers that I know. But the key is you can get one that's rated for 90 to 1,000 volts, and it will detect down as low as 40 volts, even though it says 90 volts. That's 90 volts when it's like testing a tiny little wire. When you got something big, that thing will test down to 40 volts or even 30 volts.
Hey, Bob, read Al Jackson's post here, because I don't know whether that should have a question mark after it or whether it's a statement.
Oh, he's saying never heard of this. He just left out the A and heard.
No, the new one.
We all try to type fast when we're doing this.
No, it says even if you have a park model.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, you should have a park model. I've talked to a number of guys that do cable TV installations. And when they go to work on a trailer or a home trailer or a park model, that's one of the things they've learned to do, because they can, in fact, get shocked off of that. And anything that's plugged into an outlet can develop a stray voltage. When it's something big like a RV, we call it a hot skid.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Okay. Does a surge protector prevent this from happening, or is there some false security in that?
Some of them do. So what can happen, for instance, and we'll talk about it later, but the very inexpensive versions of the surge protectors will not stop this at all. The what you would call the intelligent ones, or the EMS ones, will in fact shut down the power if you've lost your electric. So if you look on the left, the little basic ones that might cost $100, while they will help prevent spikes from coming in from like a lightning strike, they do nothing to prevent a hot skin. Whereas the intelligent ones, or the EMS ones, they'll cost 3 times as much, $300-400. They have relays in them, and they will disconnect you if they find that it's lost its ground and it's heading towards hot skin conditions. There are a few conditions that can happen that they can't even detect, but that's beyond the scope of this course.
So basically, if you've got a 30, 40, 50, 80, 90, $100,000 unit, spending $150 to $300 is not really out of line.
Well, the nice thing is the intelligent ones also check for high and low voltage. So if the voltage goes too low, it will in fact shut the power off. If it goes too high, and there's a variety of conditions that your voltage can go upwards of 130, 140, up to 180, 200 volts, and start destroying all your electrical system inside your RV. So they protect two ways. One is against shocks from humans, and the other is against over voltage for your appliances in your RV.
Okay. And if that does happen where you've cooked your system, what kind of money are you talking about to repair it?
Oh, tens of thousands of dollars sometimes, because it can take out everything. It can take out your inverter, your converter, your things, your microwave, your refrigerator. If you have a new RV that has all the intelligent controls inside of it, where it's all integrated, it can be really, really expensive.
Like take it down to a basic level for us guys that don't know what the hell we're doing when we plug in this stuff. So you get to the campground and you've got your surge protector, you've got your electrical cord, and you got the pedestal.
Right.
So what's the proper process? Because I know you should shut off the breaker, but take us through the process of plugging in and checking all this stuff.
Okay. Well, I think it starts even before that, because we see a lot of people, what they do is they'll go to the campground. The guy will drive them back on the little go-kart or their little golf cart and take a look, approve it. You drive in, you park it, you level it, you hook up water. And the very last thing you do is check electrical. And if there's a problem, then they'll say, tough luck, or plug into another thing over here. Whereas what I think people should do is get one of these an intelligent EMS, like a remote one on the right there. You take that back with you before you actually pull into the spot. You plug it into the pedestal, and if this reports incorrect polarity, that open ground, too low or too high a voltage, do not accept the campsite spot. Say, I won't take this.
Wow.
Okay, so
you don't pay for it.
Okay, so you don't even have to have the RV back on the lot, and you don't have to have it plugged into this. So this is a standalone. This is the first test. This is standalone. Go back and plug it into the pedestal.
Correct. So that way, I have hundreds of probably emails that guys said, I got in, it was too late, or it's too dark, or there's no spots left after we spent an hour. How long do you take to level these things and put your awning out, and then you're messing with the power? Power should be first, and you don't even have to pull in to test it. Now, after you hook this in, and in reality, you should turn off the breakers as you're plugging in or unplugging things, because that helps prevent pitting and destroying your connections. Then, you hook up into your shore power into your RV, you flip on the breaker and you power it up, and then you take your non-contact voltage tester and you confirm that you do not have a shock voltage on the skin of your RV.
That's amazing.
Because even though the tester, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Talk a little bit. I know through your writings with Chuck and RV Travel and your electricity newsletter, you have a group of people now that this is a serious problem in a lot of campgrounds, and a lot of campgrounds aren't addressing it. And we have a lot of campground friends, and you don't get to experience the RV lifestyle unless you go to a campground. So that's going to be the gauge as to whether or not you enjoy the RV lifestyle. But talk about that group of people that you've assembled to actually check for surge protection, or tell us about that.
We're trying to gather real information on how many pedestals are affected. So now I think we're upwards of 400 people that have signed up onto the Stray Voltage Patrol. And their job basically is to, when they test something, they're supposed to report back if they found a problem. Voltage too high, voltage too low, bad ground, bad polarity. And I get stuff in every week. Now, we started it in the fall after the camping season and kind of slowed down, but now it's starting to pick back up as people are getting out and starting to hook up. So I think that that'll probably go like gangbusters over the summer. I'll probably have 500 to 1,000 just regular people just testing with things like the like these surge protectors.
Yep.
Well, I think you've raised the consciousness of this issue because nobody else was ever talking about it. So in essence, this surge, patrol that you've got out there will bring more awareness to it in the campgrounds. I'm
It
sure
will.
the campgrounds listening. What advice do you have for campgrounds, and what can they do to improve the facility so that their customers don't have these kinds of problems?
Okay, I think one of the worst things that you can do as a campsite or as a campground owner is to allow a work camper to install pedestals and do wiring, because the vast majority of them have no idea what they're doing. Now, I know it costs you more money to hire an RV technician or an electrician, but by golly, I every time I go into one, I'll see at least one or two pedestals knocked over by somebody that didn't make the turn. And, I've got a work camper out there working on it. Now, I always get suspicious when I see a brand new pedestal on an old campground. I don't know how that thing's been wired.
Oh, that's a very, very interesting way of determining.
Oh,
that
yeah.
it's something
When I see a new outlet in an old church,
Yep.
I'm terrified because,
Yep.
Again, some painters installed that outlet. So, you really need to test. So I think that there's a few tests that I've developed that I think that they should do once a year. That now it's not a cheap tester; it's like a $300 or $400 tester, and you need a technician to do it. But it will go ascertain the ability of every pedestal to have sufficient voltage, proper grounds, and everything. And it's like a 1-minute test with a little tester that you plug in. Again, beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. But I would love to see campgrounds begin actually testing their receptacles with the proper kind of meters.
Interesting. Now, speaking about the proper kind of meters, Adam's got a question here.
Oh, between a circuit analyzer and a surge protector. Okay, circuit analyzer basically has a few lights on it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So the circuit analyzer, basically it'll tell you, are the hot and the neutral swap? Does it have a basic ground? They usually have 3 lights on them. There'll be 2 yellow lights, two yellow lights and a red light, and you should see 2 yellows but no red light up. Now, a surge protector, its job is to prevent voltage spikes from the outside world to get in, like nearby lightning strikes, motors starting up, and that kind of stuff. And that's another thing that just can cause cumulative damage to the electronics in your RVs. So the surge protector's job is to protect you against voltage spikes and surges. The circuit analyzer just tells you if the basic wiring is okay.
Hey, Bob, can I get my commercial in?
I was all set for you, John. I was just waiting for a break.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mike, this is our commercial here. This is our public service announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, as you do every Wednesday night on RV in New England. As you can see, we're in the midst of a great show. And the reason that we are able to reach thousands of people every week is not because of my good looks or Zagami's good looks. It's because you, our viewers, are kind enough to hit that button down at the bottom of your screen that says share. So if there is someone that you know that is an active RVer and they should find out about this program in repeat, please hit share now. If there's someone you know that's thinking of joining the RV lifestyle, and I will tell you that regardless of how close they are to buying, they need to know this information that Mike is imparting on us tonight. Hit the share button for them, but do it a couple times during the show. When we get off the show at 8 o'clock Eastern time, hit share again, because we get thousands of comments, hundreds of comments. I don't want to exaggerate too much. And this, based upon the number of people that we had signing on and on right now, is going to be a very special show. And Bob, I can tell it's a very special show because the more we talk about catastrophic issues, Mike gets more and more excited.
Right.
And it reminds me of my days working in radio and TV when the weatherman was absolutely excited when we were going to get pounded with a blizzard. So, folks, if you've got a question that possibly has a catastrophic answer to it, just punch it in right now. Mike is waiting for it, and he's getting so worked up that he wants to answer that question.
I got a note here from Jerry. I'm not sure I understand it, but I think Mike might.
My built-in progressive EMS did not see the hot skin. That's also, it's completely possible. I actually discovered a miswiring condition that the industry did not know about. And it's a combination of something that's called a bootleg ground and reverse polarity. So I call it an RPBG, reverse polarity bootleg ground, that there is no detector on the market that can find it or disconnect you from it. But you can discover it with a simple non-contact voltage tester. So if you look up reverse polarity bootleg ground, you'll find that none of the companies knew about it. I'm the guy that introduced it, and I've written about it extensively for a number of professional electrician magazines.
Reverse polarity, what?
Bootleg ground.
RPBG.
RPBG, and then rolls trippingly off the tongue.
Sounds like a vitamin.
Doesn't it though?
It does.
But this happens in a lot of 60s and 70s wiring when they didn't have a ground wire on them and people would just put jumpers on them. And I've seen a number of campgrounds, churches, and boat docks that actually have that. And that's a terrifying condition.
Well, you know, Mike, you bring up a very interesting point, because so many times us RVers hear of stories where the unit itself was wired in reverse from the factory.
Right.
And those are people that do it all day long. So it's possible that, you know, the red and the blue or the black or whatever, you know, got put on the wrong area. However, you bring up a very good point. How many people that work in campgrounds are, you know, engineers versus people that are working there and, you know, are kind of like, well, this might go here, this might go here. And the consequences is, you know, $100,000 unit gets fried because the wrong person was playing with the tools.
Right. And so, for instance, I mean, now this wasn't a campground related one, but my dad just had it at his rental house a month or so ago, where he was noticing that as the wind was blowing, his lights were blinking in the house, getting brighter and dimmer. And what had happened was the neutral had opened up, and the voltage on the one side, you know, you have 240 volts coming in that's divided into a 120 and 120. The voltage had gone from 120 up to about 150 volts on the one side, and it fried all of his brand new furnace controller. So he paid $360 the one time, and he didn't know, they didn't tell him what had happened. 2 weeks later, it happened again, and I went out and measured it and figured this out. He paid it twice. Now, that's just a home furnace. You know, if that would happen in your RV, which same kind of thing can happen, you could do thousands of dollars of damage each time.
Yeah. Question from Jerry.
Yes. Another, does the Ottoformer rob power from the site next door? And so here I have kind of you know, I know how Ottoformers work, and that's just basically a trademark name for what we call an auto transformer. And it does, it robs amperage from the site next door to give you more voltage. Now, the key here is, even notwithstanding the fact that they misrepresent how the Ottoformer works on their site, which is why I won't promote it, it is going to be part of the National Electrical Code in 2020 edition, and they're not going to be allowed on campgrounds anymore.
What is it?
It is basically a transformer. As if the voltage drops below 110 volts or 105 volts or 100 volts, it makes up and adds another 5 or 10 or 15 volts on it to get you back up close to 120 volts. But to do that, it takes power from the line more than it actually takes more amperage on the pedestal side than you're using in your side of it. So it does tend to drag the line down for everybody else.
Mike, again, don't laugh at me for this, what may be considered a basic question, but would it be safe to say, based upon what you're telling us tonight, that it's almost safer to stay in a campground that's not totally full than one on 4th of July where they're jamming everybody into every possible space
right
that they have on the grounds? You
can see what happens, and I've had a number of guys tell me, you started at a campground early in the morning and you had 115 or 118 volts, and that's all good. And they said as more and more air conditioners came on, I had one, it was a state campground, it had gone down to, I think, 94 volts. Now, 94 volts will destroy your air conditioner in short order. I mean, your rooftop, it does not like low voltage at all. But it was because everybody came on and started turning on all the air conditioners. So the earlier campgrounds, another thing that was dangerous was aluminum wiring that they used to allow. And aluminum versus copper was cheaper, but it does not have the same amperage capacity at all.
Yeah, I was hoping that Mark Polk would be around, because I know he's done videos and stuff on surge protectors himself, and he said it was running late, so he just signed on. So I'm sure that Mark will be able to come up with a comment on some of the topics that we're getting into tonight. I'm absolutely, I wrote a couple notes down before we came on, and I think it's pertinent now that I wanted to read it, but I'm looking here. I write electricity, the silent killer, hidden damage. It's not visible. Unlike, you've got a water leak. Okay. You can see where the leak is. You've got, chipping on your paint. What do you call it? The surface, delamination.
Right. Yes.
That kind of stuff. But this electricity stuff, you don't see it until it's too late. Is that a safe way to?
That's absolutely true. And part of the examples that I do, because I have the ways that I can create whatever shock hazard I want, I start at 40 volts, and I test it, and I say, notice there's no hums, there's no buzzes, there's no electrical arcs like you see in the movies. You take it up to 80 volts and you don't see anything. And I'm going, if I touch that right now, I'd be knocked down on the ground and might have to restart my heart. And I take it up to 120 volts. There's no blue glow. There's no nothing. You can't see it at all. But if you were to touch that when your hands are wet and you're standing in a wet puddle, the key is once you get more than about 60 volts, you can't let go of the electrified object.
Can't let go.
It's terrifying because you have more muscles in your hand that contract like this than you do to open it. And so when you touch that ladder, you grab onto it. Now, one of the tricks that I do all the time as
unintentionally.
You can't. What I do is I always brush my knuckle on the back of anything that could possibly be electrified, because then your hand will jump away from it, as opposed to you don't want to touch something with your palm because you will try to grab onto it and you cannot let go. You're standing there screaming. I had it happen to me once. It was just terrifying.
It only happens once, right, Mike?
Well, that one I was probably about 12 years old. Later, I got into really, really high voltage situations, so I had to be really careful because some of my other colleagues had died from doing stupid things. I was the plant safety officer for Corning Glass when I was in my 20s, and OSHA came through. So I learned an awful lot about electrical safety directly from OSHA.
Now, you mentioned the electrical codes, and
right.
There are people, there's several dealers on tonight and servicemen. What are the codes that they should be familiar with? Because Walter's very handy. Walter does a lot of his own repairs and stuff. And guys like that, they like to read stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. You can get all of the codes are free if you want to go on to the National Electrical Code site. It's the NFPA, National Fire Protection Agency. Right
here in Massachusetts, Quincy, Mass.
So, yeah, the NFPA. What you're looking for is called the NEC, the National Electrical Code 70. That's the publication. That's the general house code. There's extra codes for RVs that are 1192 and 1194. One of them is for how RVs are built, and the other ones are for how campgrounds are supposed to be wired. And so in order to be RVIA certified, you basically have to follow those codes. And everybody does pretty much that I can see with any RVs that I've poked my head around inside of the wiring. Campgrounds, not so much. They just don't bother.
Hey, Bob, there's a number of good comments there. I don't know if you're catching them coming in, especially Wayne from Canada.
They're flying in. We already have over 42 comments. What we do, Mike, and what we ask you to do afterwards is go back through the comments, if you would, and answer the ones that we could not get to tonight. And John and I do the same thing, but this is not a topic that we're proficient in. Wayne, let me read this one from Wayne because it's kind of long, but Wayne from Orillia, Ontario, Canada.
Just north of Toronto.
I volunteer on many local festivals as an electrical technician. No contact tester, fluke meter, and plug-in quick tester. As my minimum carry all the time equipment I think I am going to add a smart EMS 50 amp just for all the 50 amp outlets used by our food vendors. Last year, we found 4 vendors with electrical problems. One was straight voltage. That's a great comment, Wayne, because well, certainly Jason and Walter and our Good Sam people, they do a lot of rallies, and they do them at campgrounds or they do them at fairgrounds. So speak to Wayne's issue there and bring it into the conversation with rallies.
Before you do that, Mike, let me ask you, does Canada and the U.S. have the same, it's not like metric versus what we use. Are the 50 amps there the same as 50 amps in the U.S.?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. As part of my thing, I also write something that's called No Shock Zone. I am in 60 to 70 countries on wiring things that I write about. So I can actually hook your RV up properly in India if you happen to be there, or South America or Africa. Not that you're probably going to be driving around over there, but they have exactly the same code in Canada, although they are stricter. They are stricter in terms of grounding conditions and that kind of stuff. We're a little loosey-goosey here.
Yeah. Wayne will be impressed that I know where Aurelia is, because that's where Casino Rama is. So Wayne, just right, if I'm right, I'm wrong on Casino Rama in Aurelia, Canada. But now back to our regularly scheduled content.
But to his question, I do believe, if he just has takes an intelligent tester around and plugs them in, he can figure out so much stuff so quickly. You get good contacts. It'll tell you voltage. It'll tell you current draws. It'll tell you whether you've got a solid ground. I think that's really a really excellent investment. And again, we have food vendors and their trailers too. They're hooked up. They should be grounded properly, and if they're not, they can be shock hazard.
Ray's got a good question here, and he just sent me another note. He says he means.
I know exactly what he's talking about.
Can use an uninterruptible power supply for voltage drops like computers. So a lot of us use UPS devices on computers. Now, when you couple that with the number of people, certainly the millennials, that are, they're full timing, they are working from the road, they're working on computers, and all of us are traveling with more devices. I mean, I've always got a computer and a tablet and a smartphone. So where does a UPS fit in with all of this?
That actually is a really good idea. We use a lot of it in the pro sound business, and even the little $40 APC ones. What is it, American Power or something?
Yeah, American Power, yeah.
They actually work really quite well, and you don't need to have a huge amount of backup. Just a few minutes. But we get a lot of brownouts and dropouts, and it's kind of hard on your computers. I happen to be a computer guy too, so I highly recommend that. That's not going to be able to run your whole RV. That's going to be on your desk where you have your computer, you
want to protect the computer, right?
Yeah, you want to protect your computer. Even the smallest ones that are rated for like 400, they'll say 400 VA. For 400 VA just means volts times amps. It just means watts. It's a 400 watt unit. They're absolutely fine for that kind of thing.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to ask a question, I think on behalf of Walter and Jason, where they run rallies, Good Sam rallies.
Right.
And probably the Quaileys as well. And I don't think they bring in generators, but unless your power is all set up all the time. But I think it's important that, like, if you're going to a county fair and you're going to camp and use their power, you might have tons of issues because of the power that the amusements are using, right?
Yeah, big motors,
and then the stage and lights.
All of that stuff, all of the above. So this, I think a surge protector is an intelligent surge protector, not just an entry-level one, is your best friend, because if the voltage goes too high, too low, I've seen generators that these guys hook up that they accidentally turn them to 480 volts instead of 120, 240, and have injected that down through every single connection in there and burn things up everywhere. So they generally take the least trained person and have them hook up the generator, which I think is backwards. You really want to have When I do shows, when I do rock and roll shows, I am easily the most qualified electrical guy there. I am the guy that hooks the generators up and tests all the wiring before I let anybody do anything. I never let the stagehands do that. It's way too dangerous. But yet carnivals, they'll hook up anything. Most of the time it's okay. But, some of the things that I've seen at these rallies is just absolutely terrifying. When I look at it, I'm going, oh boy, I hope nothing bad happens.
Well, you think of the Freiburg Fair, which is an old fairground, and they do that up there with all the rides, and they got their campground up there.
Yes.
So it's incumbent upon people to do a little bit more research on this. So, so when you think about our audience and the questions that they've got, where do they start now that they've listened to you? So subscribe to your newsletter, buy the book.
They should subscribe. They should buy the book, and they should read this. And the key here is I wrote this kind of in multiple levels, so that somebody that knows nothing about it, I go through what voltage is, what current is, what wattage is, and then start working our way into, how do you measure it? What are the dangerous aspects of it? I've got a whole series of videos that are starting to come out now that there will be little video shorts that each one will show how to use a meter. And I'm just starting to publish those. The key here is you have to be your own advocate. You really do. So even though your home, the first time your home electricity came on, it was tested by an electrician and certified by the inspector that everything was fine. But every time you move your RV and plug in, you are on a brand new electrical thing every time. And so you unfortunately have to just kind of take, a certain amount of charge of your own safety.
Interesting.
Well, yeah. Now, one of the things, and I'll tell our audience, we are also talking to Mike about bringing Mike in to do some technician training for our dealers, hopefully sometime in April. So for the dealers who might be on here tonight, we want to get your input on that. We'll probably do two. We've got the 17th and the 18th of April penciled in, and we'll probably do two trainings on that. But I was just thinking, Mike, do you do consumer seminars? This is how informal our show is. So I'm thinking, I've got you here, probably going to have you here for 2 days. What if that night, when you get to the second location, if we did a 1 or 2 hour consumer seminar? I mean, we'll beat the hell out of you.
I have things of all lengths. In fact, I've got a nice 1 hour to hour and 15-minute one that I've done. I did it at Hershey last year at the PRDCA. I'm doing it again. I think I'm going to be doing one for out at the Airstream plant coming up. What is it there? Alumapalooza.
Alumapalooza, yeah.
Alumapalooza, which I just love saying. So yeah, I do have that. I teach a lot to consumers, but I also have ones that I teach at technician level for training, for troubleshooting. And that's really my main expertise, is troubleshooting really, really complicated electrical problems.
Do you need a facility with, can you do this in lecture form, or do you need power there to show people what we're talking about?
Oh,
I
have built some of the coolest test gadgets you could imagine. So I actually can just run off of a regular 20 amp outlet, but I can step it up and I can do 120 and 240 volts. And I actually recently built a 3-phase generator that's a desktop one. It's a tiny little thing, but it makes 120, 208, 240, and up to 480 volts, 3-phase.
Nobody. So does that mean yes or no? Does that mean you can do it in the regular hotel?
Yes, I do it in a hotel lobby. That's what it means. And I can demonstrate anything.
We would get a room. We'd get a room. You wouldn't have to do it in the lobby.
Well, okay, not the lobby, but you know what I mean. I can do that without special power. And I've gone out and done a number of these demonstrations for pro sound companies, because again, they're always tying in for huge electrical things. And so I've got all desktop stuff that I invented. It's just, there's no other way to show it.
We're almost at an hour. I can't believe it. This thing has flown by. But for the real novice, and no, we got some people on here tonight who are first timers. They're going to go to a campground. They're going to see something like this. So tell them what this is all about.
Tell us what that is, though, first, Bob, for the first timer.
No, let Mike tell you. I can't tell you.
Pedestal. That's an electrical pedestal, right?
That's
Campfire
right.
pedestal.
You're a park model guy.
Yes. The one on the right is your little 20 amp one, and that's very similar to what you'll see in your home. And that's good for 2,400 watts of power. The one in the middle here is a 30 amp outlet, and it looks like it should be 240 volts, but it is not. It's still 120 volts. And that's what is officially called the TT30 connector for travel trailer 30. And most RVs have at least that size. The one on the left is a 120, 240 volt system. We call it a 50 amp outlet, but it is really 100 amps total. So it's good for 12,000 watts of power. So every large RV is going to have a 50 amp shore power cord, whereas many of the smaller ones will have at least a 30 amp one.
All right, Mike, recently, the last 4 or 5 years, we have seen RVs become literally houses on wheels.
Yes.
Several appliances, 4 or 5 TVs, the slide outs, microwave ovens,
Washable dryers.
Washer dryer. So when do we go to 100 amps on these pedestals, and what is the industry saying, or what are the codes saying for RVs, understanding what we're putting out there?
Code may allow that to happen. One of the things that is just now in the last code cycle allows you to bring 2 legs of 3-phase power in, which would be 50 plus 50. If they brought in, I think the next one could be actually 3-phase, which would be basically 150 amps rather than just 100 amps. And some of them have suggested they're going to put 2 power short cords coming in and expect 2 pedestals to power the RV, which that's as much as you have in an entire house.
So would the RV have 2 power cords?
They would have 2 power cords, right?
Separating some of the appliances or the features in the RV.
Yeah, that's at least some of the things that people have talked about. I've tried to get a little more info on this yet. That's not going to happen anytime soon. Campgrounds have a hard enough time keeping up with a 50 amp service. They
right.
Really do.
There's a lot of them that don't have it, right?
A lot of them don't have it. You have earlier campgrounds, or what they kept doing was expanding and adding onto the wires and making them longer and longer. And every time you make a wire longer, you get more of a voltage drop. And
So
that
expand on that a little bit, Mike, because the unit comes with the RV comes with the 50 amp plug, and they get there and they get to a campground that has only 30 amp. What's the safety precautions? What should they know? What should they be carrying with them?
You can get what's called a dog bone adapter, and the one end of it will have a 30 amp plug, and the other end of it will have a 50 amp receptacle on it, an outlet. And you can plug it in, but instead of having 12,000 watts of power, now you only have 3,600 watts of power. So if your daughter turns on her 1,800 watt hair dryer while you're trying to run the microwave, it'll trip that breaker. Some of it have more hair than others.
Don't talk to Tagami about that.
I take exception to that. I can't believe we're at 7 minutes and 7 hours.
I'll be glad to do another show sometime for you. No problem.
Well, we're going to have you back.
Bob,
let's ask a couple of minutes. I want to see if there's anything important that I'm missing on the thing. So
while you're looking at that, Bob, let's ask our viewers to just write yes if they would be interested in attending a live event somewhere here in New England. We don't expect Wayne to come all the way down from Canada, but you know what? If you're in central New England within an hour's ride, it certainly, based upon the comments tonight, it certainly seems as though there is that interest. So folks, just write yes under live comments if you would be, and again, no obligation whatsoever, if you'd be interested in attending a live event.
Yeah.
With Mike here in New England. We know of an AC Marriott hotel nearby that would probably fit the bill now that we don't have to double the power to it.
Mm-hmm. And I love teaching classes. I'm an adjunct professor 1 day a week, teaching advanced audio production. So I'm used to crowds and that kind of stuff. To me, it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we covered most of the comments. We will go back and add some additional answers and information. And if you have other things that you can leave with us there. You can get Mike's book on Amazon. You go to rvtravel.com and you can, on the right hand, there's a weekly newsletter that comes out. Well, now it's going to come out every Sunday. He's changing it over to Sunday on the free version. And on the right hand side, it says electricity, and you'll see all of Mike's columns, your blogs, and all of that is on the right hand side. So the information is out there. And then if you get lost, just drop us a line or post something on the Facebook page. Mike, any closing comments? I really appreciate you coming by tonight.
I think that we are surrounded by electricity, so it's our job to learn as much as we can to be safe around
right.
it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any closing comments, John?
I just thought this was just I think this was just a fantastic show. I saw that you guys, you know, were before we went on the air, you're talking about all this technical stuff. I said, I'm just going to be a fly on the wall here. But you know what? We have to, Mike, you do a great job of making it understandable to the layman who don't know all those X, Y, Z's and ABCs that you and Walter and all the other people know, and Jerry. So thank you so much for being with us. And I think that we've got the making of a live event sometime in the not too distant future for the folks that have said, yes, let's do it.
And don't forget, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we'll be reporting live from Salt Lake City. And Wednesday night next week. Now, you won't see a Be Live announcement, but John will be live at 7 o'clock. And he's
It'll be Facebook Live. It'll be Facebook Live.
It'll be Facebook Live, because you have to be on a computer to launch the program, and he's not going to be walking around the hall with a computer. So he'll have his camera and get around the hall and show you some new products and talk to some RV people and see what's what. All right, guys. That's it for now. I will see you folks. We'll be online Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Mike, thanks again very much and appreciate it.
Very good. Let's play safe out there.
Have a
Yes,
great
sir.
day, everybody.
Good night now.
Thanks so much. Let's go RVing.